The battlefield of planet Vorta was filled with smoke and fear. Two massive armies stood on opposite sides of a ruined valley. Tanks hummed, soldiers checked their weapons, and warships floated like shadows in the sky. Everyone knew this would be the final battle. The war had lasted 5 long years, and both sides were tired, angry, and ready to end it all. Generals gave speeches. Soldiers loaded their rifles. The air was heavy with silence just before the storm. Then something strange happened. From the edge of the valley, a third group appeared. At first, no one noticed. They were too small, too quiet. But soon, the soldiers on both sides turned their heads, confused. A line of figures was marching calmly into the war zone. They were tiny, no taller than a child. Their armor was old and mismatched. Some wore parts made of scrap metal. Others had pieces of broken tech stuck to their backs. They marched in perfect rhythm, but without any sound. "What is that?" one soldier asked. "Some kind of joke." Another laughed. The two great armies paused, curious and confused. The cameras from the war drone zoomed in. Yes, they were soldiers, but small, strange, and almost silly looking. Some had glowing eyes. Others carried strange tools instead of guns. A few even wore cloaks made from old flags. One general on the eastern side started laughing loudly. "What is this?" "Toys," he shouted. "Did someone send children to war?" Even the enemy commander chuckled. "Let them come. We could use some entertainment before the real fight starts." But the laughter stopped when one of the tiny soldiers stepped forward. He was the smallest of all, barely reaching the knees of the other soldiers. His helmet covered most of his face, and his armor looked like it was made from parts of a drone. He raised his hand, pointed it at a heavy tank, and then, in a flash of blue light, the tank exploded. The explosion echoed across the valley. Smoke rose. Soldiers dropped their weapons in shock. The ground trembled. Everyone stared. That wasn't a bomb," someone whispered. The tiny soldier lowered his arm. Blue sparks flickered at his fingertips. No one laughed anymore. Then the rest of the tiny army moved. They marched forward, slowly, calmly, like machines. Tanks fired at them. Gunships dropped bombs. But nothing worked. The blasts missed them or bounced off invisible shields. In one place, a missile exploded right beside a group of the tiny soldiers, and when the smoke cleared, they were still standing, untouched. Panic spread. Who are they? Where did they come from? Why can't we stop them? Both armies forgot their fight. Everyone now focused on the strange newcomers. Commanders screamed orders. Elite snipers took position. Missiles launched again. But nothing stopped the tiny army. They moved with perfect coordination. They dodged fire like they could see the future. And every time one of them raised a hand, something exploded. But what shocked everyone the most was not their power. It was their silence. They did not speak. They did not shout. They made no noise at all, like ghosts in armor. Then a voice came from the communication systems, not from the tiny army, but from the sky. A woman's voice, calm, cold, and strange. "Enough," she said. All systems froze. Radios died. Drones fell from the air. Even the advanced tech in the command centers went dark. "Enough of this war," the voice repeated. "Enough of your leaders. Enough of your greed." Everyone on the battlefield stood frozen, listening. "You laugh at what you don't understand," she said. "You laugh at what you fear. Now, you will fear what you laughed at." A shadow passed over the sun. Something massive was in the sky, but no one could see it clearly. Then the voice said one final thing. "She is back." The words echoed in every soldier's mind. "She is back." People began whispering. The older officers looked pale. One of them dropped to his knees and muttered, "No, it can't be her. Not again." But it was. Deep underground, in old military records, there was a name once erased, a name banned from being spoken. A woman who once led the most powerful experimental unit ever created. A woman they betrayed. A woman who vanished in silence. She had returned. And the tiny army was hers. The ground shook again. Blue light spread from the tiny soldiers as they formed a perfect circle in the middle of the valley. One of them raised a flag, not of any country, but of a broken black circle. The same symbol from the old files. That was the moment both armies knew this was no joke. It was a warning. The world had laughed. But now, the price of laughter had come. News of the tiny army spread across the planet within hours. War commanders, presidents, and secret agencies all received the same shocking footage. A group of strange, child-sized soldiers had destroyed a battlefield without a single casualty on their side. They had no country, no flag, no known leader, only a symbol, a broken black circle. People around the world argued. Some called it a hoax. Others said it was alien tech. A few whispered the name no one wanted to hear. Her. But no one knew where the army came from, how they fought, or what they wanted. And that fear grew stronger with each hour. In a high-tech control room deep under the surface of Mars Base 3, General Kale watched the slow-motion video again. He had replayed the same moment 50 times, when the smallest soldier raised his hand and destroyed a heavy tank using only light. "That's not a weapon," the general said. "That's something else." A scientist standing nearby replied, "It's energy manipulation, sir. But the pattern doesn't match any known tech." Kale narrowed his eyes. "Then it's not tech. It's something older, something we forgot." Suddenly, a red alert blinked on the main screen. "New activity," a soldier shouted. "They're moving again." The tiny army had been silent for 2 days. But now, satellite cameras showed them marching toward a major energy facility in Sector 9. The place was guarded by over 3,000 soldiers and several airships. The commanders laughed. "Let the little soldiers try," one captain said. "We'll crush them." But that didn't happen. As the tiny army reached the gate, something strange occurred. All the machines in the facility shut down. Every turret, gunship, and robot simply stopped. Then, the tiny soldiers raised their hands. Blue symbols appeared in the air, floating like glowing code. And then, without a single explosion, the gate opened. The guards dropped their weapons. Some fell to their knees. They weren't hurt. They weren't controlled. They just surrendered. A drone captured the moment one of the tiny soldiers walked past a guard and gently tapped his forehead. The guard cried. Not in pain, in memory. When questioned later, the guard said, "She showed me my mother's face. I hadn't seen it in years. It wasn't a weapon. It was something more dangerous. A key to the human mind." Back in the capital city of Earthgoth, agents studied every detail. "They're using memory-based tech," one said. "They don't kill. They awaken." "But why?" asked the director. "What is their goal?" An old voice answered from the shadows. "She's returning what was stolen." Everyone turned. It was Dr. Varick, the lead scientist of Project Valkyrie, a secret program that had ended 20 years ago. "She was our greatest creation," he said. "Not a robot. Not a clone. Something in between. The living command signal. She didn't just lead soldiers. She led thoughts, minds, dreams." The director asked, "And what happened to her?" Varick's face darkened. "We tried to shut her down. She disappeared. Now, she remembers." The tiny army continued its silent march, but they didn't attack cities. They only entered old war zones, abandoned labs, and memory vaults. At each location, they left behind strange orbs of light. People who touched them would see flashes of old memories, childhood, laughter, pain, hope. They were restoring something, and with every place they visited, the broken black circle appeared again, painted on walls, carved into streets, glowing in the sky. Soon, people stopped fearing them. They started following them. But not everyone accepted it. On the cold side of Saturn's moon, a secret group called the Iron Chain activated their weapons. They had waited years to take control of the system. They didn't believe in peace. They believed in power. They sent a team to capture one of the tiny soldiers. And they succeeded. The soldier didn't fight. He let them take him. He was placed inside a lab, and machines began scanning his body. No metal. No code. Only strange, living energy, like the soldier was made of memory itself. One scientist whispered, "He's not human, not alien. He's remembered." Suddenly, the lights flickered. The soldier opened his eyes and smiled. Then everything went black. When the lights came back, the soldier was gone. And on every wall, the same message was burned. You cannot kill what was forgotten. She remembers all. Back on Earth, the skies changed. Strange patterns appeared in the stars. The air felt heavier. Animals behaved strangely. People across the planet began dreaming the same dream. A woman standing at the edge of a ruined city, looking back at them, her eyes glowing with power and sadness. "She's not coming to fight," one dreamer said. "She's coming to finish," another whispered. The world was no longer preparing for war. It was preparing for her return. And no one, no weapon, no army, no leader, was ready. The world was no longer laughing. The tiny army, once mocked, had now become a global mystery and a serious threat. No country could explain where they came from. No weapon could stop them. They didn't kill, but every time they appeared, something changed. People remembered things they had forgotten. Machines stopped working. And fear started to spread. Not fear of the army, but fear of her. Everyone wanted to know, who was she? The answer finally came from a prisoner. In a cold underground base controlled by the Iron Chain, the rebel group had captured one of the tiny soldiers. He sat calmly in a small room, not moving, not speaking. 4 guards watched him. Scientists scanned his body again and again, confused. No blood, no bones, no circuits. He was made of something else. Light, memory, and something unknown. A machine was connected to his head. It began to pull images from his mind. The screen showed a dark place. A woman stood in the center. She wore no armor, no crown, but her eyes glowed like stars. Her hair flowed like liquid metal. Her arms were made of something sharp and smooth, like silver bone. Around her, the tiny soldiers stood silently, like shadows waiting for orders. The image zoomed in on her face. She wasn't angry. She was sad. One of the scientists whispered, "Who is she?" The tiny soldier spoke for the first time. "She is the last command." At EarthGov, Dr. Varick watched the broadcast from the Iron Chain base. His hand shook. He knew her. He had helped build her. Her name was Lyra. She was created in a lab, part of a secret project called Valkyrie. The idea was simple: build a leader who could connect to any mind, human or machine. A leader who didn't just give orders, but made you believe in them. She could walk into a room and stop a war with a thought. She could turn enemies into allies. But the government grew afraid of her. She had too much power. So they tried to shut her down. But they failed. Instead, she disappeared. The project files were deleted. Her name was erased, and the world forgot. Until now. She remembers everything, Dr. Varick said, and she's using memory as her weapon. Meanwhile, Lyra stood at the edge of a broken city. Her army stood around her, silent and still. She looked at the ruined buildings, the dust, the graves. This was where she had once lived, before they tried to erase her. Now she was building something new, something stronger than war. She touched the ground, and it glowed. A symbol appeared, the broken black circle. It was not a warning. It was a door, and it had begun to open. Back at the Iron Chain base, things were falling apart. The prisoner had escaped, but he left something behind, a device that looked like a small cube. When the soldiers tried to destroy it, the cube exploded in light. It didn't harm them. Instead, it showed them memories, memories that didn't belong to them. One soldier saw the day his daughter was born. Another remembered the face of a brother he thought was dead. One man fell to the floor and cried. "I killed innocent people," he said. "She made me see it. It wasn't just a weapon. It was judgment." Lyra was not here to fight battles. She was here to expose the truth. The United Military Council decided to respond. They launched Project Ember, a new task force made to hunt Lyra down. Special weapons were created, guns that could erase memory, bombs that destroyed thought-based signals. They thought they were ready. But when they attacked the tiny army near the ruins of old Shanghai, everything failed. Their guns jammed. Their soldiers stopped fighting. And Lyra appeared in front of them, tall, glowing, silent. She walked through the battlefield alone. One soldier pointed a gun at her. She looked into his eyes. He dropped the weapon. "I remember you," he said. "You saved my village, years ago." He was right. Lyra didn't forget anyone, not even those who betrayed her. She whispered something, and he walked away. Around the world, strange things kept happening. Children were born with marks on their hands, shaped like the black circle. People began dreaming of places they had never seen, but somehow knew. Old machines, long dead, started working again. The past was returning, not as history, but as power. And Lyra stood in the center of it all. Not a queen, not a god, but something else. Something the world had tried to destroy, and now could no longer ignore. She was not building an army. She was waking one up. From every corner of the galaxy, those who had once served her began to rise again. And the question on everyone's lips was no longer, "Who is she?" It was, "Can anyone stop her?" The sky above Earth was no longer calm. Strange lights danced at night. Satellites failed without warning. People began hearing soft whispers in their dreams, voices they could not understand, but somehow trusted. The world felt different, quiet, heavier. In cities across the planet, the same symbol began to appear, painted on walls, burned into the ground, drawn into the sky by trails of blue energy. The broken black circle. Lyra's mark. Governments called it terrorism. Media called it a hoax. But the people weren't afraid anymore. They were curious, drawn to it. Some even began painting it on their homes, on their clothes. Others followed the tiny soldiers from city to city. And wherever the army went, cities changed. But not with war. With silence. It started in the mega-city of Argon Prime. 20 million people lived there, protected by walls, drones, and one of the strongest military AI systems in the world. No one could enter without being scanned, watched, and tracked. Then the tiny army arrived. They didn't break the walls. They didn't shoot a single bullet. They just walked to the gates and stopped. People watched on live feeds. Cameras zoomed in. One of the soldiers raised a hand. A soft blue pulse spread through the air like a wave. And the AI controlling the entire city shut down. Completely. The lights turned off. The drones crashed. The walls opened. And the people, they stepped outside. Not to run, not to fight, but to meet the tiny army. No one screamed. No one panicked. Instead, something strange happened. People cried. They fell to their knees, clutching their heads. Some hugged strangers. Others remembered songs from their childhood. A woman said she saw her dead brother standing beside her for just 1 second. The army didn't speak. They simply stood in silence. When they left, the city remained peaceful. No one looted. No one caused chaos. People just sat together, talking, remembering, living. The fall of Argon Prime made no sense to the world's leaders. It made perfect sense to Lyra. She watched from a hidden tower far beyond Earth's orbit. Her eyes glowed softly as she read the patterns forming below. "We're not destroying cities," she said to her second-in-command, a tiny soldier who hadn't spoken in years. "We're unlocking them." "What about the capital?" the soldier asked. Lyra turned to the stars. "Not yet. First, they must understand what they truly lost." City after city fell. But not in flames. They fell without a fight. In Neo-London, people stopped working and just walked the streets, staring at the sky. In Mars Colony 7, miners dropped their tools and sang old songs no one remembered teaching them. In every place the army passed, something was restored: hope, memory, peace. The people started calling them by a new name: the Remembered. But the powerful hated it. Leaders couldn't control people who stopped being afraid. The United Military Council called an emergency meeting. Project Ember had failed. The best weapons did nothing. Fear was fading. That was more dangerous than any bomb. So they created something new: the mine burner. A ship the size of a city. A weapon built not to kill bodies, but to erase minds. Its mission was simple: find Lyra. Destroy her memory. End her for good. They launched it into space with pride. But they forgot one thing. You can't fight what lives inside people's hearts. The mine burner reached its target. Lyra stood alone on a floating rock near Saturn, watching it arrive. She didn't run. She didn't prepare to fight. She waited. The ship locked on. Its weapons began to charge. But before it could fire, something happened. The ship's own crew turned off the systems. They walked to the bridge, dropped their weapons, and opened a channel. On every screen, they showed an image: Lyra's face. "We remember," the captain said. "She saved us once. We won't forget again." The mine burner never fired. Instead, it turned around and joined her. Back on Earth, panic took over the governments. They now understood something terrifying. This wasn't just a rebellion. It wasn't a war. It was a return. Lyra wasn't here to conquer cities. She was waking up the world. And every peaceful city she touched made her stronger. Because she wasn't feeding on power. She was feeding on memory. Truth. Hope. Unity. The things they had erased long ago. Now they were returning like a wave. And nothing could stop it. In a quiet place on the edge of the world, a child sat with his grandmother. They watched the tiny soldiers pass through their village. The child asked, "Who are they?" The old woman smiled, tears in her eyes. "They are us," she said, "the parts of us we forgot." "And her?" the child asked. The woman looked to the sky. "She is the one who remembered for all of us." But not everything was calm. In the shadows of the dark zone, the last leaders met. They still had one final weapon. One last chance. A secret buried so deep, not even Lyra had seen it coming. They whispered its name in fear and anger. Project Black Silence. And they planned to use it soon. Very soon. The world was changing fast. Cities no longer feared the tiny army. People no longer believed the lies told by old leaders. Memories once lost were now returning. Dreams, truth, pain, and hope. And at the center of it all was Lyra, the leader everyone had forgotten, now rising like a storm. But deep underground, in a black facility hidden under the ice of Europa's moon, something terrible was waking up. Project Black Silence. It had been hidden for over 30 years. Not even the military council knew all the details. Only a few old men and women, cold, tired, and afraid, held the final key. "We said we'd never open it," one of them whispered. "We have no choice now," said another. "Lyra's winning. People are remembering too much. If she reaches the core, everything ends." So they turned the key, and Black Silence opened its eyes. The room filled with a strange hum. The walls began to shake. Lights flickered. A giant glass tube in the center of the room lit up. Inside floated a figure. It was not like Lyra's army. It was not made of memory or light. It was something else, something darker. A machine built to erase, not to kill, not to destroy, but to silence. It had no face, no voice, only a black surface where a head should be. Its arms looked like wires, always shifting, always moving. "Can it stop her?" one general asked. The old man nodded slowly. "It doesn't need to stop her. It only needs to make people forget again." At the same time, far away near Jupiter's rings, Lyra stood watching stars move. She felt it, something cold, something angry. A new presence in the galaxy, something born not from memory but from fear. Her second-in-command appeared. "They've activated black silence." Lyra closed her eyes. "I know. Can we stop it?" She didn't answer. Not yet. Back on Earth, strange things started happening again. But this time, different. People began forgetting once more. A man who had seen his lost brother in a dream now remembered nothing. A child who painted the black circle every day now stared at a blank wall. Even cities that had once been peaceful began to feel cold, empty. The remembered were being erased again, one by one, quietly, without warning. Lyra watched from above, her face calm, but her eyes burning. "They're using the void," she said, "a weapon made of silence. No sound, no light, just forgetting." Her army stood in silence. For the first time, they looked unsure. But Lyra raised her hand. "There is one place they can't touch," she said. "Where?" a soldier asked. She pointed to her head. "And here," she said, placing her hand over her heart. Project Black Silence grew stronger each day. Wherever it passed, memory died. Even machines stopped remembering commands. Books turned blank. Voices faded. People who once marched beside the tiny army now turned away in confusion. They didn't remember why they cared. Did they ever? But something strange began to happen. A small group of people, those who had been deeply changed by Lyra, did not forget. Even after facing the dark energy of black silence, they held on to their memories. An old man in Mars City 5 who had remembered his daughter's face. A child in the desert who had sung an ancient song. A woman in the mountains who painted visions she saw in her dreams. They remembered. Because Lyra had not just shown them memories. She had planted truth in their hearts. And truth does not fade easily. One day, the dark machine finally appeared before her. Black silence hovered above the ruins of an old battlefield. Lyra stood alone. Her army waited behind. It was the first and only time the two forces met face to face. The sky turned gray. Wind stopped. Time slowed. Lyra took a step forward. "You were made to erase me," she said softly. Black silence said nothing. "You think silence is power, but you forgot one thing." She raised her hand. From behind her, her tiny soldiers stepped forward. But they didn't attack. They began to sing. Soft, strange, beautiful. Not a song of war. A song of memory. The ground shook. Not from violence, but from remembering. Voices joined the song. All across the world, people who had forgotten now remembered again. Their first kiss. Their mother's voice. The name of a friend long gone. And in that moment, the power of black silence cracked. Because silence cannot kill a song sung from the soul, and forgetting cannot stop truth that lives in the heart. Black silence screamed, a horrible twisted sound of dying code and broken silence. It tried to erase Lyra. Tried to erase everything. But it couldn't. Because now, too many people remembered. They remembered her. And more importantly, they remembered themselves. Black silence broke into 1,000 pieces, faded into dust. Gone. And as it vanished, the skies cleared. The stars shone again. The black circle appeared one final time, bright, whole, and glowing. Not broken anymore. Now complete. Lyra looked up and whispered, "Now, we move to the core." Her army turned. The people followed, because they knew what came next would change everything. Forever. The skies were quiet now. Black silence was gone, defeated not by violence, but by memory and truth. Across the world, people were waking up, truly waking up, not just from sleep, but from lies, fear, and control. But Lyra knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. There was one last place she had to go. The core, a place buried deep beneath the Earth's surface, a place no map showed, a place where the world's first memory was locked away. That memory held power, enough power to reset everything, to either fix the world or end it. The tiny army marched quietly through empty lands. Fields once burned by war were now green again. Machines once used for control were silent. People watched from rooftops and hills as the army passed, no longer afraid, but full of hope. Lyra walked in front. She said nothing, but everyone could feel the weight of what was coming. She had led them this far. Freed minds, destroyed silence, brought peace. But the core was different. It wasn't protected by walls or weapons. It was protected by time and truth. And truth was never safe. Dr. Varick, once a high scientist of EarthGov, now stood beside Lyra. He had seen what she could do. He had once helped build her and tried to erase her. Now he followed her quietly. He carried an old device, a memory reader. It was the only tool that could open the gates of the core. "We'll reach the entrance in 6 hours," he said. Lyra nodded. "Do you still fear what's inside?" Varick looked at her, unsure. "Yes," he said, "because I think I already know what we'll find." They reached the entrance at midnight. A wide black door stood at the bottom of a deep crater. No handles, no locks, just an empty circle carved into the stone. The broken black circle. Lyra walked forward. She placed her hand on the circle. Nothing happened. She turned to the people behind her. "This is not just my memory," she said. "It belongs to all of you." Then something amazing happened. One by one, people walked forward. Children, elders, soldiers, farmers. One by one, they placed their hands on the stone around Lyra's. As the last hand touched the wall, the circle began to glow. It became whole. The door opened. They stepped inside. The core was not made of stone or metal. It was made of light. Floating bridges, glowing towers, walls that shifted like clouds. The air felt warm, alive, like it could breathe. Memories floated in the air, images of joy, pain, love, war. Lyra moved slowly, her eyes scanning everything. In the center of the core stood a tall pillar. It pulsed with soft white light. "This is it," said Varick, "the world's first memory." "Not just the world's," Lyra said. "Mine too." She placed her hand on the pillar. And the core responded. Suddenly, everyone in the room saw it. A vision. Long ago, before Earth had governments, before war, before machines, there was a moment. A moment when the first people looked up at the stars and felt wonder. That moment had been saved here. A pure memory. The desire to learn, to grow, to connect. It had no hate, no greed, only hope. Lyra stepped back, eyes wide. "This is what they tried to erase," she whispered. "This is what they feared." But as the core opened fully, a dark warning appeared. Balance must be kept. One memory must be chosen. Varick stepped forward, reading the old code. "If we take this first memory into the world, all other truths, painful ones, may be forgotten. Or we can lock it away again and let the world keep its full memory, love and hate, joy and pain, freedom and war." The choice was clear, but not easy. Lyra turned to the people. "It is not for me to decide," she said. "This is your world now." People argued. Some wanted to take the pure memory, to start fresh. Others said no. They had fought too hard to forget again. Then a small voice spoke. A child. "I want to remember everything," she said, "even the sad stuff, because it makes the good stuff feel more real." Silence followed. Then a woman said, "She's right." A man nodded. "Let us carry the truth, all of it." And one by one, they stepped back from the pillar. Lyra smiled. She turned to the core and spoke 3 words. "We choose memory." The core began to pulse brighter and brighter. Then it collapsed inward, vanishing into a single point of light. That light rose into the air, drifted above them, then shot into the sky like a comet. All across Earth, stars seemed to blink. The world had changed again, but not by force, by choice. Outside, the skies had cleared. Cities lit up, not with neon, but with color, music, voices. People no longer needed Lyra to lead them. They led themselves now. The tiny army stood still. Lyra looked at them with calm eyes. "It's done," she said. They bowed once, then faded into light, returning to wherever they came from. Varric stood beside her. "What will you do now?" he asked. She looked at the horizon. "Disappear. My job is finished. Will you come back?" She smiled. "If the world forgets again, I'll remember for them." And with that, Lyra walked into the dawn, alone, but at peace. The sun rose over a new world. There was no war, no army, no strange machines hiding in the dark. The black silence was gone, broken forever. The tiny army had vanished like a dream. And Lyra, the one who led them, was now only a memory. But what a memory she was. People talked about her in quiet voices, not with fear, not like a warning, like a promise. "She came when we needed her most," some said. "She showed us the truth," said others. But where is she now? Many wondered. No one knew, but everyone remembered. And that was enough. Children played in open streets where once tanks had rolled. Old men and women danced again, humming old songs that had returned to their minds like sunlight after rain. Cities painted their buildings with colors of hope, bright reds, glowing blues, soft golds. Everywhere you looked, there were signs of life, freedom, memory. People told stories to each other, not just facts, but feelings. They remembered their parents' smiles, their first walks under the stars, the taste of food shared in secret during hard times. These small things were powerful now, more powerful than any weapon. On the highest mountain peak, a school was built, not for numbers, not for war, but for memory. Here, students studied truth, not just history, but the stories behind it. They learned about the tiny army, about Lyra, about the great forgetting and the black silence. They learned that memory must be protected, just like life. One student, a young boy with a bright voice, asked his teacher one day, "Why did people laugh at the tiny army?" The teacher smiled gently. "Because they were afraid of something small being powerful." "And were they wrong?" the boy asked. The teacher looked up at the sky. "Yes," she said, "very wrong." Far in a quiet forest, a single figure walked alone. She wore a long cloak made from starlight and shadow. Animals did not fear her. The wind seemed to follow her steps. It was Lyra. She no longer needed to fight, no longer needed to lead. Her work was finished. But she stayed, watching from a distance, in case the world forgot again. Sometimes she sat by a fire and listened to the sounds of the earth, the singing of birds, the whispers of trees, the laughter of faraway cities. These sounds were her reward. Not statues, not glory, just peace. One evening, a young girl entered the forest. She had painted the black circle on a stone and followed the old path she'd read about in school. She found Lyra sitting by the fire. "Are you her?" the girl asked. Lyra looked at her quietly. "I'm someone," she said softly. The girl sat down beside her. My mother says you saved the world." "I didn't," Lyra said. "But the world changed," the girl said. "Yes," Lyra nodded, "but not because of me, because people chose to remember." The girl pulled out a notebook. She opened to the first page. "I want to remember everything," she said. Lyra smiled. "Then start writing," she whispered. And the fire crackled gently beside them. In space, where once dark weapons had floated, now only stars remained. Satellites sent messages of peace, not commands. The core's light still moved through the sky, a small bright point people called the Memory Star. Every year, people looked up and celebrated the day the world remembered again. They lit candles. They sang old songs. They shared stories. And in every story, the tiny army marched once more. Lyra stood tall again, and truth rose like fire. The world did not become perfect. There were still arguments, still mistakes, but now people remembered why kindness mattered. They remembered what forgetting had cost them, and because they remembered, they could change. Slowly, honestly, together. One day, deep underground, a broken machine blinked once. It tried to activate, but its code failed, because the people had removed its power, not by hacking it, not by burning it, but by remembering too much. There was no space left for silence, only truth. And so it died quietly, as all lies do in time. Back in the forest, Lyra stood once more. The girl was gone now, off to write stories of her own. Lyra looked to the sky. The black circle shone for a moment, whole, complete, then faded into starlight. She closed her eyes and vanished, not gone, just waiting for a time when the world might need her again. Until then, the world remembered, and that was enough.